evening and welcome back to the First Time Homebuyer Show. I'm your host, SD Klassen. As you can see by the title of this video, we're talking all about mistakes that have been made by first-time homebuyers or even people who have invested before. We're joined with Lebu and Neo from Nong Wealth. Welcome. How are you this evening?
Awesome, and we couldn't be anywhere speaking about property after 8 o'clock, is it? Yeah.
Nowhere else but you. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. I just want to quickly introduce you. The two of you have quite a hefty title. You property investors, property content creators, YouTubers. You even host masterclasses. You flip and rent properties. So it's a mouthful of a title. So I wouldn't want to be anywhere else but speaking to you about these mistakes. So thank you again. I've been doing a lot of research about mistakes that first-time home buyers make, and Lebu and I have been speaking in the week, and to narrow it down to 5 was extremely difficult. But we did it, and for the sake of time, hopefully we can get through all the 5. So one of the common mistakes that first-time home buyers make is that first-time home buyers don't necessarily know what they want. Would you guys say that this is true, and why?
Looking at hi SD and hi to all of the viewers. I hope that you're excited about listening about property at 8 o'clock today. So now what you're actually saying is actually right. So now when you're a first-time home buyer, you're overwhelmed about buying property, signing that offer to purchase, and all of this jargon that's actually coming to you, and now you're not actually aware of which property is the right one for you. So now what we always say, or what we always stress, is that before you actually buy your first property, just go around and view properties to actually see that which one actually best fits your character best. Because now when you're looking at some properties, you might find out that you're going for that one, whereas if you did actually go around looking at multiple properties, you would have actually identified that one that suits your best personality. So now where this actually comes in is that we need to have a fine balance between overviewing and underviewing. So now underviewing is when you're just going to the one property and you're saying that this is the property, I'm buying it, end of story. Overviewing is going around 1 year, you're busy looking at different properties and you can't really make a choice. So now just narrow it to the 5 best properties and then just select one. I know Neo likes to say A, B, C. This one is the one that I'm actually choosing.
So finding that middle line between overviewing and underviewing. And I tend to make this mistake quite often. I mean, I'm still renting, but like I would find my price range in which I'd like to rent. I'd find the area is close to work, etc. I'd view it once, and then I believe that this has everything that I need. It's like a dream home for me. And then weeks down the line or months, you're like, but there's no garden. Like it doesn't have things to go outside. You're just like trapped indoors. So that's exactly what you mean by viewing multiple properties. Neo, maybe you can speak a little bit more about viewing multiple properties. Did you personally experience where you didn't view enough? What exactly happened?
Of course, I mean, this was at the point in time whereby we didn't invest in ourselves. So now when you're looking at us right now, I'm happy to say that I'm a property addict. I'm obsessed with property to a point whereby I have a whole criteria that when I go to, I'm not usually those fussy people when I go for shopping. Is this lean mints? Does it have this? Does it have that? But when it comes to property, those are the type of people that we are. We have a whole criteria, even when we talk to people saying that, you know what, have a criteria. So that when you're looking for that property, when you're about to buy it, you know that it fits everything to your criteria. And when you're looking at it and you're actually analyzing it, it needs to fit to your criteria. It shouldn't be something whereby you want to buy it to impress Level that, oh man, I've got a jacuzzi and you don't. Because don't forget, at the end of the day, you will be paying rent. So what's important is that, does that property fit your criteria?
I think the first...
So what exactly... Oh, sorry, Lebu, go for it.
I think the first example that we actually learned was when we were involved in a deal and we were supposed to buy a unit. So now, as it was our first, right? We're like, we love this one and we're buying it at the same time. But now, looking 1 month later, there was another property that had a better ROI on that particular property. So now we were like, if we had only looked around the market, shopped the market before we actually bind ourselves to this particular property, then we would have actually got a greater ROI. But now I think we've learned the lesson.
Exactly. So you won't make that mistake again. So what exactly, for the two of you, is your criteria? What consists of your criteria when you look at multiple properties, when you view all these properties?
I think the most important thing, which is quite a contrast, we're not even looking at the beauty of the property, it's the numbers. So now with property investing, do the numbers make sense? However, now if it's a property that I'm buying for mommy, I need to understand what's her criteria. So mommy's criteria versus my criteria will differ. I'll know that she doesn't want to go up the stairs. She wants something that's quite not big because she wants to be all over the place. She doesn't want to be scared. So now I also need to think about in terms of who is buying and what is their criteria. Hence, I mentioned criteria. So when I'm buying for myself as a property investor, I mentioned that the numbers are very important. That's the number one reason why one would buy a property.
So really just your return on investment. And I think that's why you beat yourself up so much when you realize a month later. And the same thing happened with me. A few weeks later, you're like, this is even cheaper. And it had a garden. So I think, but leads me to my next question is, what if I don't have the luxury of viewing multiple properties?
So, I think that's when you'll rely on your power team. Power team, what I'm saying is that you need to know what are your weak point and what's your strong point. So if I know that I don't have that time to be actually looking for deals, I need to know that I have to have somebody on my team who's going to be giving me those deals. Or if I'm working, I know that I need to have somebody who's going to give me these properties according to my criteria. Because at the end of the day, when you're just going to choose one property because you don't have time, don't forget, people are always speaking about property being your best, one of the most biggest investments that one would make. So I would make time just to even run numbers. If it's just numbers that's important, definitely I would make time to check that out.
I think the best person who can actually help you out on that particular matter is your estate agent.
Sure.
So now with your estate agent, what you can tell them, you don't even have to go around looking or shopping for these particular things.
Sure.
You can actually tell your estate agency that, okay, this is my price point that I'm actually looking at for this particular properties. Please narrow it down to your top 5 in your particular sheet. Then they will actually come up with the top 5, and you will only go when you're going to view the particular property. I think that's why we're always emphasizing that you need a power team. We can't do everything by ourselves, if we were to be honest. We can't run the numbers. We can't be the estate agent, be the lawyers, be everything. So we just need to find people who are actually knowledgeable with the particular market and people who can actually help us to make things better for us.
Exactly. And I think it's so much easier if the buyer knows what they want, because then they can pass that criteria on to people who are helping them find this property. Now, our next mistake that we spoke about is negotiating the right price. Not everyone knows how to negotiate, right? And negotiating is a little bit tricky because if you're trying to negotiate with the seller, let's say, it sometimes seems intimidating because they might think you can't afford it, so why do you even view it in the first place? Are there particular skills to negotiating?
I think there's just a lot of things that you just need to put behind yourself, especially as a property investor. Number one, as a property investor, I mean, people call us cheap, but it's fine because now we know that our numbers need to actually make sense. So now when I'm looking at a particular property and I need to negotiate it, right, I need to understand that at which price point would it be actually profitable. And if I exceed this particular price point, say for instance, 800,000, if I go beyond 800,000, then I won't be making that particular mistake. So now, when you're looking at how to actually negotiate, I think the first thing is to understand the situation that the person is in, right? So now, if Neo, say for instance, Neo needs to sell his particular property right now as soon as possible, and I need to come in a negotiation with him, I need to understand his situation, and he also needs to understand my situation. So I can't come to him and say that, yes, I'm going to buy this property of yours at this particular price. I'm obviously going to lose the deal because now some people feel as if, you know what, that person doesn't actually understand the situation that I'm in, so I'm not even going to sell it to him, right? So now it's balancing the two between you actually knowing what your price point is and also letting him know that you are the person to actually help him and not take his property away from him.
So have you ever been in a situation where you actually negotiated something and it didn't manifest, or they weren't budging, they weren't actually willing to come down? What did you do in that situation?
I mean, we even lost count. As a property investor, or even when you're looking for property, you should get to that point where you lose count. That's when you qualify. That's when you qualify. So it does get to, yeah?
I was going to say, so tell us more about because we could get in a situation where we try to negotiate and nothing works. So what do we do in this case, and how did the whole story play out?
I mean, what happened is that, especially when you have that skill of negotiating, is that I'll even tell you how are we going to come into a negotiation. So we talked about power team. If I'm having my power team, I'm going to come with my contractors, and then we're going to go to the property. They're going to tell me what's wrong with the property, and then when I'll be negotiating with the owner, I'm going to be saying, you know what, I'm a property investor and I want to help you out with the situation. So now in me helping you out, these are the things that I need to fix, and they're going to come out from my pocket. So how about you actually reduce it from this amount to this amount so that I can factor in the total investment. So whatever that I'll be investing, so that I can factor in and I can help you. So in that regard, it's me rather creating a platform whereby it's more of a conversation between me and them. And then that's when they are going to either say, you know what, I understand where you're coming from. Or option B is that, no, I don't understand. I can't really agree to that. And then what will happen is that, I think this is us taking out the ace out of our sleeve. So what will happen in that regard is that you shouldn't be too cocky at the same time. You should be, you know what, I'm giving you a week to actually think about the offer that I'm making. And if you are interested, but there should be a time frame so that you can, push them to that. So when you say 1 week so that they can think about it, it actually creates that platform whereby, you know what, I thought about what you're saying, and how about, even if they don't agree to that, they just increase it a bit. You look back to your numbers and then see if you can take it forward from there.
And in that week, we hope that no one else, makes beats the offer or makes the same offer, so that you could get it. So create some of that suspense that, like, this, I'm giving you a week, let me know. So on the topic of negotiating, and like Lebu said earlier, jargon that we need to understand within the property spectrum. And one of that is the conveyancer, the bond originator. This is titles, especially as first-time home buyers, that we should do more research on and know exactly what their role is. So you talk about negotiating to use a conveyancer to register the property on the buyer's side. What do you mean by that?
Okay. So now, when you're going through a property, when you're actually buying a property and it's supposed to be registered into your name. So now, the process would be you would actually sign the offer to purchase and you'd give it to the seller, right? Then the seller would be the one that would say that, okay, you know what, I'm actually accepting your offer. Then the title deed needs to be then transferred from the seller's name into the buyer's name, right? So now that's done by the conveyancer. That's your property lawyer. So now, with every property, when you're going to register your particular property, you need a conveyancer, right? So now what we also did the first time, we said that, you know what, there's the offer to purchase, you can actually do it. So now what we didn't know is that the conveyancer was working with the buyer. So now the buyer wasn't actually willing to actually sell this particular property. So now they were delaying the process. So now what I urge property investors to do, or someone who's actually looking to buy a property, you'd rather actually get your lawyer and try to negotiate for you to use your lawyers, because now you know that you are looking to buy this particular property as soon as possible. So now the registration process can actually take much less time than if it was on the seller's side. So now if you're actually leaving it to the seller side, you're actually giving the seller side freedom to do whatever they want. So now you also need to actually put in those laws that, you know what, I understand that you want to actually sell this particular property, but now at the same hand, I want to use my conveyancers to actually transfer this particular property into my name.
I think what
sorry, continue now.
I think most, especially as first-time buyers, we become intimidated by this platform whereby it's a big arena and I'm just somebody who's just going to sign and then hope that my property comes to me. Like, you need to be proactive. We're always talking about this. Be proactive to an offer to purchase instead of being reactive. Instead of accepting everything that will be given to you, put your terms and conditions in there and actually challenge it, because at the end of the day, you will be taking out money from your pocket. So you need to protect your business or protect yourself in that regard.
Exactly. And, according to the research on Uber home loans that I saw about conveyancers and how much they charge, let's say I'm buying a house between 800,000 to 1 million. Conveyancer fees range between 15 to 18,000. What happens if I can't afford this?
We've never been in a situation whereby we could not afford this. But now, one thing that I do know is that as a property investor, right, I'm able to actually negotiate with my conveyancers. Sure. So it wouldn't be correct for me to say to all of the viewers, especially as first-time buyers, that you need to negotiate with your conveyancer. Because now I know that with my conveyancer, when I do resell this particular property, I can then pay my fees when the property is actually sold. So now, when you're looking at that particular thing, you need to actually try to negotiate with the conveyancer if they can actually give you a discounted rate, if that's actually possible.
Right. So not being able to afford, and again, with first-time home buyers, these are, like we said, understand the jargon and also understand the hidden cost and the amount of cash that you should have set aside for these fees that you could incur later on and within the long run of, all leading up to the offer to purchase. We have a few questions from Instagram. Just before we go to an ad break, this is Katlego is asking, how far can you go with negotiating, let's say from 1 million?
From 1 million. I think it will totally be dependent on your skill. That I can't necessarily even say 500 or even 400. That's totally dependent on your skill. And also don't forget, it's not only from your side, it's also from the seller side. How much are they willing to let go? But I'll be lying to you if I say that you're the best negotiator, you get it for 100,000 from 1 million. So I think that question will differ from one person to another. I think.
Yeah, depending on your negotiation skills, obviously. Carry on, Libby.
Just to add on what Neo was saying, right? When you're looking for a distressed property, or when you're looking at someone that's actually wanting to sell their property really fast, that's when you can start now to understand that, okay, now I can actually get it at a discounted price. So now if someone is just selling it because they want to move on to the next property, and you are telling them that you want to actually buy this particular property at 700,000, they're going to tell you that they still have time, so they don't want to sell it at 700,000. But now, if you have a situation whereby someone is actually migrating and moving to the next country, and you want to buy that particular property at 700,000 to 750,000, maybe then they'll start to consider that particular price. So now it also depends on the situation of that particular seller.
Right, and now we have Polisile, also from Instagram. This is quite a big question, and I don't think we have enough time to answer it, but maybe you can just quickly give us a few pointers. Polisile is saying, I want to get into property business. What is your advice for a first-time property investor?
For a first-time property investor, I'd say that invest in yourself. As I did mention that, there's so much that happens in the back office that people are not aware of. Until you buy that property, then you make these mistakes that we'll be speaking about, and then we'll all be in this chat room. So I'd say that invest in yourself and learn as much from mistakes that people have made and the mistakes that we'll be discussing today. Investing in yourself.
Just to add on what Noah's just said right now, if you can actually surround yourself with property investors, if you can't actually invest in yourself, but now, but it's fine. When you actually look at a particular property, right, make sure that you have people around you that are property investors or they are knowledgeable about property. Because now that's where you can actually feed off their energies. You can actually feed off what you actually need to do in the next session.
Exactly. I always say, surround yourself with like-minded people, so if you in this game of property, and also this is how we learn. This is how we learn from other people's mistakes like we are doing this evening. We're going to run to a quick ad break. And in this time, for our viewers watching on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube, tell us maybe some mistakes that you made, or if you have any questions for Lebo and Neo from Nong Wealth, please comment down below. We're going to be back shortly. Thank you. Welcome back. Thank you so much to our viewers who are tuned in. As you know, we're talking to Neo and Lebo from Nong Wealth about mistakes that they've made themselves and also seen being made repetitively. But tonight we talk about how to overcome these mistakes and also delve deep into maybe mistakes that you've made. So don't forget, comment below. Tell us about the mistakes you've made. And if you have any questions, comment down below. On the topic of conveyancing, we have one more question from Facebook. We briefly answered this, and I'm sure the cost of conveyances differ, but maybe if you can advise, this is Katlego as well, how much do conveyances cost?
Now, conveyances vary from one property to the next. So now I think what you can do is that you can go onto the private property page, and just beneath there, you can just put in all of your details, and then it will actually show you a roundabout figure of how much you should be expected to actually pay for your conveyancer cost.
Exactly. There are there's also law firms who offer conveyancing calculators for you to actually see, you put in the cost and you can see plus minus how much your conveyancer fees will charge you. You were going to say something, Lebo?
I wanted to stress something, right? Remember, with your conveyancer costs, you have two conveyancer costs. So now you have your bond registration and you also have your transfer costs, right? That's something that you need to be aware of. I think the last time we made the same mistake of thinking that, you know what, I'm only going to pay one conveyancer. Now I was happy that, yes, we actually got a bargain, only to find out that a week later, other conveyancers actually called and were like, guys, you need to also pay your bond registration. So now just make sure that you have both of the money before you actually buy the particular property.
Yeah, again, emphasis on the hidden costs that come with investing in property, but this shouldn't turn you away. Just have them ready because, like you said, if you know a conveyancer, speak to your own lawyer, get as much knowledge on these things as possible before investing. One of the other mistakes is not using a bond originator to get a bond. And we know bond originators, they help us, they leverage with banks to get the best deal possible. So what happened? Did you not use a bond originator? When that happened, what were the implications of that?
Fortunately, we got rejected. So we just went to a bank, applied, and then got rejected. And then we scratched our head. We're like, where did we go wrong? How can we come back and actually try other banks? And then we actually checked, we checked with our network, and they were like, gents, how about you go the bond originator route? And we've actually forged a relationship with our bond originator. And it's quite nice, whereby, as you did mention, that they will help you apply to all these financial institutions, and you can actually get the best interest rate from buying a property. So that is very important. And by the way, if it's the first time, you shouldn't be thinking about, I have to pay conveyances, I have to pay this. Now you guys are telling me about a bond originator. Where am I going to get all this money? So with bond originator, at least you'll be paying the bank in terms of you getting the loan from the bank, and then the bank will actually settle it with them. So you don't have to stress about it.
Exactly. And also with bond originators, if you were rejected the first time, it doesn't mean that a bond originator can't help you afterwards, exactly like you're saying. So you talk about, having bond originators, and you've educated us on what the term means, again, the jargon. Be wary of this and know exactly what it means. Has a bond originator made the process easier for you?
Bond originator, I think it goes back to the party. The bond originator makes it easy for you because now all they're actually going to do is that they're going to send you their power of attorney so that you can actually sign and they can actually apply on your behalf. So now they'll actually apply at the various financial institutions, whereby if it was you, you'd need to actually go physically to apply at all different banks. So now with the bond originator, you know that you just need to send it to one person, and then that person will actually distribute it to everybody else and then get the best interest rate for you. So now I think on the money side and on the time side, it's actually best for you because now you save your time in terms of you going out and looking for that particular loan, and you also save yourself some money because now the interest rate will actually go down when you go through your bond originator. I think we had a client that was saying that, guys, you know what? I'm loyal to my bank. I don't need a bond originator. I'll just apply at my bank, only to find out that they got rejected by their bank, right? So now they need to go to the bond originator to apply at every bank. But now once their application went through every bank, now their bank actually said that, you know what, we're reconsidering it. Please do actually send your application again. So now this is something to also consider, that if you're actually going to send your offer to purchase through your bond originator, they will be the one that will make the transfer actually better for you because now they'll get you the best interest rate and the best deal.
Exactly. If you look at everything that you've mentioned throughout the show, getting a real estate agent to view the properties or find your top 5, giving them your criteria, the conveyancer, the bond originator, it all makes the process easier for property investors. So it's really not that overwhelming because there are people doing these things for you at the end of the day. Last but not least, your final mistake is not being able to anticipate the renovation costs. And when I saw this, I was like, did you get something? And you were like, okay, I'm just going to renovate the kitchen, and thinking that it might only be 20,000, and then getting there and you know, because that you need the contractor, you need another kind of power team who's going to be doing the renovations for you on the other side. So what exactly happened when you invested and you realized the renovation costs are maybe way too high for me to afford?
I think I'm about to expose my cousin. So now what happened is that he wanted to build his foundation, right? So now only to find out when they were going down on the foundation, there were some few pipes that were actually bursted around the area. So now that was an additional cost for him to actually go deeper and find other contractors to actually come and fix that whole part. So now there might be something that you're actually missing with your naked eye if you actually don't have a contractor to come to that particular property and do the proper due diligence. So now, if you don't do the proper due diligence, you might find yourself that, okay, you have actually budgeted 50,000 to actually refurb. You thought that you were just going to paint, it was going to be fun, you're going to actually put in some windows, only to find out that there's mold inside the roofs, only to find out that the roof needs to be actually fixed, the whole roof needs to be fixed. Now it's not fun anymore.
Exactly. And now have you actually figured out how to research the renovation costs before purchasing the property? Have you figured out how to do that?
You know, it's like playing chess. It's like property investing is like playing chess. Now, when you play chess, I think I'm going to simplify it for even the people that don't play chess. The king doesn't actually beat all of the people, like your pawns and your castles. However, but the king is important. So now it goes back to having a power team, surrounding yourself with all of these castles, surrounding yourself with power team. Because now the guys that we have, the contractors that we have, they do a splendid job. Even to the way the relationship that they have, we know that they have a good relationship with us and we can refer them to any of our clients. That's how much we trust them. And now with that relationship, we know that this guy will sit down and they will treat this person, even though you have been in property investing, as if it was the first time you buying a property. In that way, even if you have such a big problem, as Lebo did mention, but now when you know that you have experts that guarantee you that they will deal with this at the most cost-efficient price, you also as a first-time buyer do become calm in somehow. So I stress that having that power team, surrounding yourself with people, and not thinking that you can do everything, it will make your job easier.
So now the process that we go through is that when we're going to view and we're sure that we want to actually buy this particular property, we then book a second viewing to come with our contractors. Then they do the proper due diligence of the whole property. So now they are the ones that will see if there's any leakage within the particular taps. They'll look at the roof, is everything still in point. They'll look at the ceiling. They know what to actually be looking at. So now even though we have actually viewed a lot of properties, we still sometimes have a problem in terms of identifying where the problem is. But now I know that my guys, in terms of the construction guys, they are the ones that are able to actually spot that, okay, there's a little black spot here. That means that there might be a roof leakage.
Exactly. Again, power team. And, you know, I've been in a situation where renovation costs, where they take the cheapest way out. And it doesn't necessarily last many years. And I'm sure you're laughing, you've probably seen it too, where you maybe get a contractor that's a friend of a friend that knows how to put in cupboards. And at the end of not even a year, and these things fall apart. So I think, again, power team, having someone who knows exactly what to look for, who can anticipate what the renovations will be in the future. We've got another question from Facebook. Delano Skoltz is asking, is it possible to change bonds between banks? If another bank offers you lower interest rates, what are the advantages and disadvantages of this?
I think let me start with disadvantage, because we like being real and we like hitting it where it hurts, because that's where it becomes realistic. People, because we've also been in a situation whereby somebody was in that situation, they're like, I want to change from one bank to another. I can tell you now, you also need to think about the cost implications. So as much as, let's say I don't like FNB anymore, I've got beef with it and I want to move to something else, I need to think about the cost implications. How is that actually going to impact my return on investment? Going back to why we said we buy. So if let's say I have negative, by the way, I do love FNB, it was just an example. So you need to always think about how is it going to affect your return on investment. So if it does, let's say you just had a personal problem with it, and then it was not that major, it's something that you should actually move along with, because if it is going to hurt your return on investment, the reason why you bought the property, it defeats the whole purpose of investing.
I think just to add on what Neil was saying, just look at the numbers. If a bank is actually offering a better return, then you need to look at how much will you be paying on a monthly basis, how long is the period actually going to take, and then is it actually better, or does it actually make sense for me to move my home loan to the next bank? Because now sometimes you do find out that they will still be the same, but now when you move your home loan to another one, you need to pay the initiation fee.
So even
So now-
cancellation.
Even the cancellation. So now in that way, it would be actually more expensive to move on to the other one. But now if there is going to be a drastic change between your monthly payments towards the bank, then I think you should go for it.
Exactly. I hope that answers your question, Delano. One more from Instagram. This is Lungi asking, what are the numbers that you need to calculate before you purchase a property for flipping?
Okay. Number one, I think that how much is it going to actually cost you to hold this particular property? So now with flipping, you need to understand that you're going to hold the property for the next 6 months. So now there won't be anyone living in that particular property for the next 6 months. That means you need to pay your rent, your rates and taxes. You need to pay your insurance. You need to actually pay your bond payments, right? Another one that you need to also consider is that how much are you actually going to pay to your estate agent? So now, if you were able to actually negotiate your estate agent from 8% to a 5% plus that, then you know that you're still sitting on the good side. Another thing that you also need to also anticipate is your transfer costs. I think we talked about them earlier on. You need to actually consider both transfer costs and your renovation costs.
And most important, where people don't like going, the area that they don't like going to is tax. How is that going to affect you in the long run? Because we like speaking about flip that it's in and out. I'm going to buy low, sell high, but then we don't talk about the tax implications towards your business. So if you are aware of that before you even invest and you put it in your plan, I say let's go for it.
Yeah, everyone hates talking about tax. Even me, I can't. It's just complete gibberish to me. Again, thank you to everyone who asked their questions. We aren't able to get to all of them tonight on the show, but they will be answered. Just before we end off, again, guys, thank you so much for joining us. You've done absolutely so much within the property spectrum, and I'd like to find out, what sacrifices did you make to get to where you are today?
No, I had to sacrifice this weekend. See?
Weekends.
No. I think with property investing, a lot of people don't take into consideration is that it's hard work. So it's not as easy as it's portrayed that I'm going to buy this house, then I'm going to be living in Bali for the next 2 weeks, and then everything's just going to go smooth sailing. There's a lot of hiccups that you do actually get within the property industry. So now there are some times whereby you are frustrated and you actually want to go away on a trip to somewhere, but now you can't because now all of your money is tied into this particular property. So now a lot of sacrifices needed to be done in terms of how we actually spend our money. So now we can't go out that much because now we have to think that if I'm going to spend 1,000, I could have spent this 1,000 to fix a window.
Exactly. And always, sorry, carry on.
No, it's fine.
We always talk about this on the show, that property is a long-term investment. So whether you want to go on that holiday for a few weeks or a month, whatever the case may be, think about your long-term investment. So invest in the property. Like you said, sacrifice weekends, sacrifice that 1,000 Rand you would have used, and rather invest it. So of course, there's a lot of sacrifices that one needs to make when investing in property for whatever the reason may be. And now we've mentioned and we've spoken about all these mistakes, and I know there are a ton more, but because of time, we can't get to them. What have you learned now since making these mistakes in order to not make these mistakes again?
Like documenting everything. Like I'll say documenting everything, somebody might look at it as if it's just one of those things, but then when you document everything, I think that's how we actually have so much knowledge, that we documented every single thing. Even starting from creating, this is the most important thing that we created for us, for our properties, that we've got an Excel sheet whereby we can actually anticipate that by the end of this year, I must have gotten so much. By the end of 5 years, I must have received so much. Now that's us changing the mindset instead of treating this property as an employee. So there's a performance appraisal for property that you'll be using so that you can track your record, that am I online to achieving my 1 year goal all the way to 5 year goals. So documenting everything has been the best for us.
What about you, Lebo? Would you agree? Do you maybe have a different lesson that you've learned from these mistakes?
I think it's the same thing with Nell, that you need to actually document everything that you're actually going through. From the tiniest thing as the person that was actually sweeping the particular, say for instance, when you're done refurbing, the person that was sweeping the house, you need to actually keep receipts in terms of how much did you actually pay this person, so that next time when you go into this particular thing, you are able to actually check back and see that, okay, I used to spend 600 on my lights, but now my quotation has went to 800. Now the contractor needs to actually tell us that why did it now move from 600 to now 800? Because now if you don't actually document everything, it's easy to get scammed. Because now I can give Neo 500 and say that, Neo, can you please go buy these lights? And he goes to a shop by the corner and gets it at a cheaper price, only to find out that 2 months later, it doesn't actually work anymore. And by that time, Neo is gone. So now it's important to have that record in terms of how much did you actually spend, where did you buy this particular property, so that when you go into the next property, you are able to actually go back and check that, okay, this is how much I'm actually anticipating to spend.
That's a perfect example of quality over quantity, what you just gave. You know, you don't want to go buy things from this buzzer shop down the road. Invest in good quality things, even when it comes to property, investing in property. Just before we go, you spoke about this on one of your YouTube videos, that not every property is worth investing. So as a first-time home buyer or first-time investor, how do I know if the property is worth investing in or not?
I think that needs to go back to the mentorship that we talked about. You need someone who knows how to actually view a particular property, someone who knows how to actually run the numbers, someone who can actually connect you with a good power team so that the process actually becomes easier for you. Because now, answering that particular question is actually giving you the whole blueprint of property investing, and it can't be possible within the next 5 minutes. So now, I think the best possible answer to that is actually getting mentorship or being close to someone who is a property investor who can actually guide you on which properties to actually look at and which property not to look at. Because I think one of the stats that you were saying is that from the 100, if we're looking at 100 properties, only 10 would be investable properties. So now you can only understand that when you're looking at all of these 100 properties, and now you were just to select one at random, chances are you're going to select a bad property. And then at the end of the day, you're going to say property investing doesn't work and it's a scam. But now you didn't actually invest in yourself. So I think that the most important thing is to actually invest in yourself and seek for knowledge that will actually help you to identify what a good property is or what a good property is.
Exactly. So thank you so much to the two of you who have joined us this evening. We've gotten a lot of comments and questions, and like I said, we will answer them on our Facebook or Instagram or YouTube platforms. But unfortunately, that's all we have time for this evening. Lebu, Neo, thank you so much. Where can we find you?
Instagram, on Facebook, on YouTube,
on Twitter. I think every platform. We can go to YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and Twitter. Just Knowwell, you'll find us.
Thank you so much. And to our viewers at home, thank you so much for your questions. And we'll see you again next week, same time, same place. Have a good weekend.
Hi, I'm Jared Siegel. I'm a local restaurateur and the owner of Jared's Espresso Bar and Eatery in Sea Point. I'm a Cape Town local, Camps Bay born and bred, and I've been living in Sydney, Australia for the last few years. Living abroad, I've always been drawn to the mother city, and I've recently decided to come back home. Taking lifestyle factors into consideration, Bantry Bay has been the perfect fit for me. Living on the Atlantic seaboard really resonates with what I'm all about. From the active lifestyle, the amazing food culture, its family-friendly environment, and amazing natural beauty, the quality of life we have on offer is really unique. The Atlantic seaboard has some of the most beautiful suburbs in the country. With areas like Camps Bay and its world-renowned beach culture and the recent refurbishment of Sea Point Promenade, it's no wonder our neighborhood has such a global appeal. After a long day of hard work, there's nothing better than taking a walk along Clifton Beach, sharing a moment and watching the sunset. Trying to offer something authentic to the community, I'm not about reinventing the wheel, just doing the classics really well. And this is my neighborhood.